Happy 2022. This piece of furniture that I was working on early December before I got COVID has been at an absolute standstill, and I have new ideas for it now. So did you know that you can remove WoodUBend? So WoodUBend, I'm still gonna be using it, but I need to do something under it before I apply it. But I'd already applied this piece. You guys know that you can take them back off. Did you know that? Takes a little bit of effort, but sometimes we have reasons that we need to do that. So I don't scorch my primer, scorch my piece. I'm just gonna heat this piece up for just a little bit. So the WoodUBend is a hard product, but as you heat it, it softens up. And everything's softening, but you can see how it's kind of softening up, and I'm actually gonna end up scraping my primer and my finish. That's okay, I can touch that up. And I'm just gonna start slowly moving it away, just like this, until I get it to release. As long as it's soft, it's not gonna crack. You can literally just peel it. So as that softens, and I'm warming the glue up that's underneath there, I'll just kind of pop that off, and we'll be able to reuse it. Voila. And that's it. See how floppy it is in comparison to the one that's hard? So I'm just gonna need to sand this off, and I'll reprime. And we're done. I seriously feel like a mad scientist right now. I am so excited about my new direction that I'm taking with this vanity. I am feeling a little crazy right now, but this makes me super happy. Anytime I can cover a piece of furniture in a freaking gorgeous paint like this, how could this not make you happy? I'm very happy. Let's walk through every single step and discuss every single detail about applying a furniture design transfer to your project. I'm gonna use my Whimsical Wonderland furniture design transfer. This is it right here. And as you can see it on the tube, this photo of the transfer is exactly the way the transfer looks, divided into 4 sheets. But the transfer is measured this direction. So it's 24 inches across and 38 inches up and down. However, on the piece that I want to use it on, which is this piece right here, I want to apply the transfer to this top drawer and the bottom drawer, which oddly enough, the width of these drawers are 38 inches, which is crazy because it's exactly the same size as the transfer if you were to turn that rectangle in a horizontal position instead of a vertical position. If you look on the back, this is what it looks like divided into 4 sheets, but I want to use it this direction, and you have the versatility to do that, and I'm going to show you how. When you pull the transfer out of the tube, you'll have the transfer itself, which is usually divided up into 4 sheets, at least the Dixie Belle transfers are, and you'll also have an application stick on the inside of the tube. Some other things that you may want to have are a pair of scissors. You may want to have an X-OXO knife of some sort. I just use a straight blade. And then you may want to use some painter's tape. Have that there as well to sort of hold your transfer in place as you kind of decide where you want to place each one. So when you pull the transfer out of the tube, you will unroll, and it comes in 4 sheets. Now Dixie Belle has numbered these sheets. So you can see in the top corner, there's a 1, there's a 3 on this one, there's a 2 and a 4 on these other ones here as well. So if you were to put those in order as if you were reading a book, number 1, top left, number 2, it would look like this. Here's the transfer in its up and down position. This would be 1, this is 2, this is 3, and this is 4. So just like reading a book. This shows you exactly how each floral matches up to the sheet next to it. I am gonna turn my transfer like this. I'm not gonna worry about my numbers. I'm gonna have my transfer turned. I'm gonna lay it out, look at it well, and I know that on the bottom corner, I want this sheet right here. So that's where I'm gonna start, is with this bottom corner sheet right here. So here I have my bottom left-hand side sheet, and I'm gonna put this right against the door edge. And then the sheet that will go above it, I know is the rest of this rose. So I've got this rose pattern here, and here is that same rose pattern, the top of it there. So I know that this sheet it's gonna go above it like this. Now the transfer is too tall for these two pieces, so I'm actually gonna trim it down. I don't want any of this white excess around the bottom, so I'm gonna move my transfer down lower. I do want a lot of this pink poppy to show. I do want my pink rose in the transfer, but I also don't want to lose my butterfly when I get over to that right side. So you kind of have to decide what's important on your transfer that you want seen, and make sure that whenever you cut it or start trimming it, that you're gonna have trimmed it appropriately so that your main focus is left on the piece. So what I did was I moved this down exactly where I wanted it. And then I just ran my fingernail against this bottom edge where the drawer meets the pink part. And it leaves this line, just like this, across the bottom. This is a very tight space down here. There isn't really room. The weight of the drawer sits really tight and there's not room to get a knife in there. Now, if I'm gonna be, you can see the space up here. So when I cut that space up there, I'm gonna be able just to use my X-Acto knife straight across that. But for right now, I needed to mark that line, make an indentation, turn it over, and I'm just gonna cut it with scissors. It doesn't have to be exact, nice and simple. Just cut across the bottom. And toss that piece aside. Now I've pre-measured the width of these drawers, and I also know how wide this is when I put both pieces next to each other. But what I do want you to take into consideration when you're applying a transfer is I want you to find your center spot. So I know that my center spot hits about right here, which is exactly where my transfer will end when I line it up on that side and this side. So the end of the transfer is not the end. This right here is the end of the print, the end of the actual floral. So when we use the piece that butts up next to that, which is this piece, we will be overlapping it a little bit. That flower will butt up with that one, and it goes all the way to the end on the other side as well. All right, so I have it cut the way I want it. I'm gonna go ahead and pull my backing off. Do not put your fingers on anywhere where there's flowers. If you touch the back side and you pull your finger, you're gonna have transfer on your finger, and your rose is gonna have a big hole in it. So this outside edge that's clear, that's where you wanna hold on to it as best you can. So I know that my poppy is in the lower left corner. I know that I want my bottom line to be straight across, and I've got my left line on the edge of the drawer right to the end of the drawers because I've already pre-measured and I know how it needs to be. And so now I'm gonna just stick this in place, and then I'm gonna go ahead and get my stick just right here. I'm gonna cut this here in just a minute before I start releasing it, but I want to press this into place as best that I possibly can so that I can run my blade through there. I'm gonna press it above it and below it. Okay, so then I'm gonna go ahead and you can either use your X-Acto knife. I've got a straight blade here. I'm gonna go right up here, and I'm just gonna run this along that edge. There we go, and that's still stuck in place. Same thing with this next edge. I'm gonna put it right between my drawers. This knife is really sharp. I'm gonna come from this side. For some reason, I met some hesitation there with some of these antique pieces. Your drawers may end up being a little bit crooked. So that's that. All of that is in place. And so now I'm just gonna start rubbing with my stick. Take your time, rub from one section, and then just keep making your way over. Just putting pressure with the stick. And then we'll start releasing in just a minute. Okay, so I've taken my stick and I've literally just from left to right, worked my way from top to bottom, all the way across it till I got to the bottom. One of the beauties of having a large transfer that's all one big piece versus a bunch of small pieces is they're a lot easier to release. This transfer is really easy to release because you don't have a lot of like petals and flowers and stems that are separate from each other. So it will just sort of release on its own. Okay, so in order to get started, I usually take a piece of my backing and I cut a little piece off of it just like that, because it's hard to get my fingernail underneath this corner of this clear corner. So just take a little piece of this backing and slide it underneath there and lift it. Lift it like that, and we're gonna work on this first row here. So you wanna do what's called a push and pull technique. So I'm pushing my stick while I'm pulling the paper back. See how I'm pulling it? So you wanna push and pull with all of the pressure being right where you're lifting. So you're just pushing and pulling at the exact same time. Now a little bit of that tore, not a big deal. See it tore away there? You just lay it right back down, continue to press there, and it lays down. You'll never know it. Don't freak out if you get a little bit of a tear. You'll never know. Just lay it right back down, rub that piece off, and keep going. And we've got our first strip on. It's that easy. So I'm just gonna keep working. Again, use your little piece, get behind your clear section, lift, and press. And remember, this is only cut into sections because there are sections of the drawer fronts. It's the only reason we're taking it off in sections. If you have one large area on an armoire or a large drawer panel that you can apply all of this at once, you're great, you can apply it at once. Now we're gonna take off our larger piece down here. Again, use your little piece to get behind that corner, lift it up, and start releasing your edge right there. And I go ahead and release this entire edge. I work my way all the way down to the bottom. That way I can pull this back and the transfer is already starting to adhere right here. See that? Oops, I let go. So I gotta get back here, pull it up again. And now I'm just gonna work my way all the way across. But remember, this is one big giant transfer without any, there are not a ton of little details. So you get to pull this off pretty quickly. If this sheet gets too big for you to work with, you can just come in and trim off your excess like this. Get your little piece, stick it behind, lift it up, and just keep going. Remember, don't freak out if a little tiny bit of it comes up. Just lay the big sheet back over it and rub it out. Woo! Isn't that gorgeous? Look how beautiful that is. It's so pretty. And that's it. Now, matching up the next panel. Okay, so I can tell right now that this is half of my rows right here. So the sheets were numbered, remember, but it was for a different orientation. So we're using a different orientation, so we're ignoring the numbers. I'm just gonna look at my other 3 panels until I see the other half of my rows, which is right there. So I know that this panel is going to go in this direction. Now, this little area down here is left clear. You can actually see through it. You can see my thumbnail through that. You want to line that up right to the edge of that flower. So that is how we know that we're gonna make this straight. We're gonna look on the left side and the right side. This may be where you wanna use a little bit of tape to hold it in place, because right now we wanna mark this top row up here. I'm gonna put just a little piece of tape on each side so you kind of get an idea of how I would secure this while I make my cut line for the top. And you would make this go all the way across, make sure it's lined up well. Put that in place. All right, so there's plenty of space up here to just cut this if we wanted to, but the only thing is, I don't want transfer up here. I don't want transfer on my pink. I only want transfer on the white drawer. So if I take my backing off of my piece right now and I stick it all the way up there and do what we just did on these drawers, that really only works if you're okay with the transfer continuing to stick to the next section. I don't want that. I want it to end right up here at the top. So because of that, I'm gonna run, you can either just use your thumbnail. I like to do that because I can feel better. So I'm just gonna run my thumbnail across that, just like this all the way across, and that's gonna let me know where I need to cut it. So you can see the line on the back, and I'll be cutting that line. Okay, I've cut my piece, and I'm ready to take the backing off and stick it on. But what I want you to notice is that I opened my top drawer a little bit. The reason I did that is any excess transfer that might come over this top just a little bit, I'd rather fold it over the top of here than have it stick to my pink. My pink is already painted. Transfers are easy to remove. If you get it in an area you don't want to, you can just sand it off, but that means I'm gonna probably sand my paint back a little bit, and then I'd have to touch my paint up. So I don't wanna do that. All right, and the reason we can pull this drawer out is because our match line is above the drawer line. So we're just matching here. Again, pull this off. Don't touch the flowers. Turn it so that you have your exact match line. I always overlap it just a little bit. You don't want to leave like any white space or furniture paint color space underneath it. I overlap it just a smidge. And check it closely before you lay it down. Whoops, that one's stuck a little bit. Okay, that one's got a little bit of a line between it. I didn't really want that. It's okay, it happens. If I pulled it away, it was gonna leave my transfer on the drawer. So what that means is I can either just leave it and not worry about it, or I can go in with a little bit of paint and just fill in this tiny, tiny little space. I'll show you better in just a minute. So now, same thing, we're just going to go across left to right, make sure this is stuck really well before we start releasing it. And then we'll move on to the other two panels. All right, using the same technique, I'm just releasing this outside edge, using that push and pull technique, paying attention to where the push and the pull meet on the plastic backing. Again, if this paper gets to be too much for you, the backing, you can just tuck that away. Get yourself in a comfortable position. Use the backing to lift your edge and keep going. Nice, right? The very last thing you need to do before you top coat your design transfer, because all design transfers need a top coat or a finishing coat, is you want to do what's called burnish, B-U-R-N-I-S-H. You want to burnish your transfer and make sure that it is adhered all the way to the paint that is below the surface. Or if you've put it directly onto wood or glass or metal, whatever it is that you're using, you still want to burnish it because you want to make sure that you've removed any air bubbles that are underneath. I use a Dixie Belle finishing pad. It is a sponge on one side and 220 grit sandpaper on the other side. You can use a brown paper bag that you've wadded up. Anything that's just got like a fine coarseness to it. You just want to run the sandpaper over the surface, especially paying attention to your top ridges up here. You want to make sure that they're not loose, that you don't have any flaking coming off around the edges, and anywhere that your seams are as well. And that's it. You don't have to do it hard, just very, very light. And then of course you would want to follow that with either a microfiber cloth, something that you could wipe it down with. I usually just use my dusting brush and remove any dust from the area before I top coat. The very last step to securing your transfer so that it lasts forever and holds up to use is top coating it. You cannot leave it just open to air. You should not do that. It needs to be protected. So you have a couple of choices here. You want to use a water-based top coat, and I've got the Dixie Belle top coat here. I've got it in both satin and flat. You could use gloss as well. Flat, you put it on there, it's protected, but you cannot see that it's on there at all. It's probably the most fail-proof, user-friendly option, especially if you're new to transfers, to put this on over the transfer. Then if you want to do any glazing or using like wax for depth, you can do that after you've top coated. I would advise top coating it first and then doing anything decorative over the top. What you don't want to use is gator hide. Use satin or gloss or flat Dixie Belle top coat first, and then if you want to put gator hide on it because you want it to be ultra durable, or it's going to be in a wet area, or it's on the top surface of a piece that's going to get a lot of use, you can use gator hide over the top of it, but you need to use one of these first and then follow, after this is dried, follow with your gator hide coats after that. Super easy to do. I just use my a synthetic brush, and I'm gonna put a flat top coat on here for you. There's nothing tricky to this at all. Just take your brush, and because it's flat, it isn't going to show at all. Brush it lightly, make sure you've got your edges covered all the way to the edge of your piece. Big, long strokes covering this piece. One coat and you're done.